Vlog every damn day.
Hello Jamie fans, welcome to another episode of Once Upon a Thursday, the day where I review Once Upon a Time. This week I'm reviewing the episode Desperate Souls. So it's kind of nice to have an entire episode based off Rumpelstiltskin. When I first started this show and I thought, Rumpelstiltskin's here, great, I don't really know a lot about him. And it was nice for me to get the Once Upon a Time version of Rumpelstiltskin's story, because it's one thing to be like, yes, I know the Cinderella fairy tale, yes, I know the Snow White fairy tale, but it's completely different to be like, yes, I know the Once Upon a Time Cinderella story, yes, I know the Once Upon a Time Snow White story, because let's just face it, they are totally different fairy tales in every single way. It's nice to know where Rumpelstiltskin's power came from. The Dark Lord disguised himself as an old man, helped Rumpelstiltskin and convinced Rumpelstiltskin that he needed to kill the Dark Lord in order to stop the Duke from coming and getting Rumpelstiltskin's son, which is a really convoluted plot, and for the longest time I didn't know if these were like the Kingsmen or if these were knights or like who these guys were, because it was really open and ambiguous, and it was kind of answered throughout the episode, but I would have liked a little more backstory to them. So I think in some ways this episode was a little convoluted, as well as some episodes have been. I feel like they kind of like rushed through the story so much that they don't really explain everything that's going on in the backstory, and they kind of just hope that you'll catch up with it as they're introducing things into the mix. So anyways, Rumpelstiltskin goes and sets the castle on fire, where the Duke keeps a sword that he uses to control the Dark Lord. Rumpelstiltskin takes that little dagger and goes and summons the Dark Lord, kills him, and the Dark Lord is revealed to be the old man from earlier, and he tells Rumpelstiltskin that Rumpelstiltskin now has the Dark Lord's power. So then Rumpelstiltskin goes and kills the Duke when the Duke goes to take Rumpelstiltskin's son. And now the reason for this is because the Duke is trying to pull people in for the war against the ogres, which was again like a really like, why is this a plot? Why didn't they pick like someone else? I mean, I guess like ogres are like a cool thing to fight against, and that seems very medieval to me. But I feel like, again, there was no backstory, and I felt like I was so just thrust into this random subplot story arc that they threw in here. Now maybe I'm just losing some marbles in my brain, and they actually did mention Ogre Wars like a very long time ago in the show, but I just am blanking on it and I don't remember anything about it. Now in the human world, it has been 2 weeks since the Sex God Sheriff is dead. Moment of silence. And Regina is supposed to choose a new sheriff by this point. However, she has not, and Emma thinks that she will become sheriff. When in that moment, Regina bursts in and says, no, I've chosen a sheriff, and it's Sydney Glass, who's the magic mirror. Mr. Gold shows up and tells Emma that Regina doesn't have as much power as she thinks, and that they actually have to go through a judicial process. Is that the right word? I don't know. So Emma shows up as Regina is like knighting Sydney Glass to become the new sheriff, and tells Regina that they actually have to vote and that they can't just appoint a new sheriff. And begrudgingly, Regina allows Emma to run against Glass Guy. Things get even more complicated when Mr. Gold decides to set fire to the mayor's office while Emma is inside of it talking to Regina. And Regina becomes, and Emma becomes a town hero by saving Regina, which I really think that she just should have just let Regina burn up. But I mean, this is not, I like Regina, but I think for Emma's sake it would have been so much easier if she would have just let that broad burn. Emma saves her, becomes a town hero, but then Emma realizes that it was Mr. Gold who set the building on fire, exposes Mr. Gold during this big debate between Emma and Mr. Glass, and the town is so impressed that Emma stood up to Mr. Gold that they voted for Emma instead of Sydney Glass, which I thought was really cool, that they actually stood up for morals and being honest. Honesty is the #1 policy, and it's real good, and it's nice for everyone. The end of the episode leaves us with Mr. Gold reminding Emma that Emma still owes Mr. Gold a favor. So as I said, I really liked this episode. I liked all of the little plots that they were kind of weaving in here. I feel like there was a lot of complication and a lot more that needed to be, but it was all kind of tied together in the end in this nice little pretty knot. I still have a lot of things that need to be answered, but I'm guessing that that will be answered in the future. There's so much about Rumpelstiltskin that I am still so confused about, and I'm really hoping that more is continued to be tied in with his story and all that, because I can't take having any more characters introduced into this show until I understand a little bit more about why these characters are the way that they are and why they do the things that they do. And that is something that I have not seen very good from this show, is that they leave all these open-ended plots. And this is the same downfall that happened with Lost, is that Lost introduced thousands of these little itty-bitty plots that never went anywhere. And then they thought they could tie it all together at the end by saying, oh, they had a happy ending and they were all happily ever after. The end, white light. But no, that it didn't work. It made a lot of fans really upset and really unsettled, and I'm afraid that this might happen with Once Upon a Time, that this show will get to the point where they just have to end, and they will not have tied together everything that needs to be tied together. And I want more closure with different characters and different scenarios and different plot lines before we move on into another episode, because we keep having like this big content episode and then a filler, big content episode, filler, big content, filler. And I want a filler with tying loose ends. That's what I really want. That's what I really want from this show, and I haven't gotten it yet. And I'm really hoping that that comes soon. Not that I'm gonna stop watching the show if I don't get fillers with plot tying, but I'm just really getting information overload, and I feel like every time I watch an episode, there's so much more that's being thrown at me, and nothing's really being resolved from the previous episode. If that makes any sense. And we're getting like these small bits of closure from each episode and each character, but it's like there's still so much that it's left open and ambiguous, and it's kind of, to me, it's very, very fairy tale like, and I appreciate that, but I also want more closure. Closure is my theme word for today. Let's have it Once Upon a Time. Let's, you and me, have some closure. Thank you all so much for watching. These have been my thoughts. Please leave your comments on this episode down in the comment section below, and tell me if you like this style of reviewing rather than like going over the entire episode and then telling you my thoughts and then ending. I personally like this a whole lot better than rehashing the entire episode, because if you watched it, you don't want me to tell you what you already saw. You've already seen it. You want to hear what my thoughts are on what I saw, and that's what I gave you today. So I hope you liked it, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace out. Take a mouse. Oh, talking way too much to name. Gotta breathe. I need to light this candle, and it smells amazing. Product placement.